June 26, 1977. Waldheim Cemetery, Forest Park, Illinois. An elderly woman visits her husband's grave on a quiet Sunday morning. She notices something wrong at the nearby headstone. The marker for Avram Hirsch Goldbogen has been knocked over. The earth around it disturbed. She calls cemetery security. They arrive to find an empty casket lying open, a body bag abandoned under a nearby tree. Mike Todd, Elizabeth Taylor's third husband, dead for 19 years, has been stolen. The thieves weren't random vandals. They were treasure hunters, seeking a legendary $100,000 diamond ring that supposedly glittered on a dead man's finger. A ring placed there by the world's most famous movie star. A ring worth enough to risk desecrating a grave for. But did the ring ever exist, or was it just another Hollywood myth that drove desperate men to commit the ultimate violation? This is the story of the most shocking grave robbery in Hollywood history. The dead producer whose Oscar couldn't protect him from greed. The diamond ring that may never have existed. The detective who solved the crime that horrified America. The night thieves dug up Elizabeth Taylor's husband, looking for treasure in a corpse's hand. And the mystery that still haunts Mike Todd's final resting place. To understand why thieves would desecrate Mike Todd's grave, you need to understand who Mike Todd was. Born Avram Hirsch Goldbogen in Minneapolis, 1909. The son of an Orthodox rabbi and a Polish immigrant mother. One of 9 children in crushing poverty. But Mike Todd transformed himself into the ultimate American success story. A carnival barker who became a Broadway producer. A Chicago street kid who conquered Hollywood. By 1957, he was one of the most powerful men in entertainment. His film, Around the World in 80 Days, won the Academy Award for Best Picture. His Todd A.O. widescreen process revolutionized cinema. And he was married to Elizabeth Taylor, the most beautiful, most famous woman in the world. March 22, 1958. Mike Todd is flying from Los Angeles to New York in his private plane, the Lucky Liz, named after his wife. Elizabeth was supposed to be with him, planned to attend the Friars Club ceremony honoring Mike as Showman of the Year. But she's sick, 102-degree fever, bronchitis, begging to come anyway. "Stay home, baby," Mike tells her. "I'll be back tomorrow." He goes upstairs 5 times to say goodbye, hugs her, kisses her, whispers in her ear, "Without you, honey, I'd feel like half a pair of scissors." The plane takes off from Burbank at midnight. Twin-engine Lockheed Lodestar. Mike, his biographer Art Cohn, pilot Bill Verner, co-pilot Tom Barkley. Flying overloaded in icing conditions. At altitude too high for safe single-engine flight. 2:30 a.m. Engine failure over New Mexico. The plane goes into a spin, crashes near Grants, explodes on impact. All 4 men die instantly, bodies burned beyond recognition. Elizabeth Taylor becomes a widow at 26. Her 7-month-old daughter Liza loses her father. Hollywood loses one of its most dynamic forces. Mike Todd's body, what's left of it, is identified through dental records. The only items recovered from the wreckage, his wedding ring and a pair of platinum cufflinks. Everything else is destroyed, consumed by flame, lost forever, or so everyone thinks. March 24, 1958. Mike Todd's funeral arrangements become a source of conflict. His son, Mike Todd Jr., wants his father cremated. "Just burn what's left and bring the ashes to Albuquerque," he tells Elizabeth. Elizabeth refuses. Absolutely, emphatically. He wouldn't want cremation, she insists. Mike needs a proper burial, a place people can visit. The decision reveals Elizabeth's psychology. After losing the love of her life, she needs a physical place to grieve, a grave to visit, a marker to prove he existed. Mike Todd is buried at Waldheim Cemetery in Forest Park, Illinois. Plot 66 of the Beth Aaron section, a Jewish cemetery chosen to honor his heritage. The funeral draws massive crowds. Elizabeth, dressed in black, devastated by grief. Hollywood royalty paying respects. Media circus surrounding the proceedings. But it's during the burial preparations that the legend begins. Elizabeth spends hours alone with Mike's body before the casket is sealed. What does she do during that private time? What final gifts does she leave with her husband? Cemetery workers whisper about seeing Elizabeth remove jewelry, about her placing something valuable on Mike's finger before the burial. She put a ring on him, one worker tells his family. Huge diamond. Must have cost a fortune. The rumor spreads. Elizabeth Taylor, devastated by grief, placing her most precious jewelry in the casket, ensuring Mike takes her diamonds to eternity. By 1960, the story has grown. The ring is worth $50,000. By 1965, $75,000. By 1970, $100,000. A $100,000 diamond ring, buried with a dead man, waiting in the ground for someone brave enough to claim it. These forgotten stories deserve to be told. If you think so too, subscribe and like this video. Thank you for keeping these memories alive. The story becomes Hollywood folklore, repeated at parties, embellished with each telling, growing more valuable with every whisper. But is it true? Did Elizabeth really bury a fortune with her husband? The only people who know for certain are Elizabeth and Mike Todd's corpse. For 19 years, Mike Todd rests peacefully in Waldheim Cemetery. Elizabeth remarries 4 more times, divorces, remarries, becomes the most photographed woman in the world. But she rarely visits Mike's grave. Too painful, too many memories, too much unfinished grief. The cemetery becomes a pilgrimage site for fans, tourists leaving flowers, movie buffs taking pictures, curiosity seekers hoping to glimpse Hollywood history. Security is minimal. A few guards, basic fencing, nothing elaborate. This is 1960s and 70s Chicago, not Fort Knox. The grave robbery stories multiply. Urban legends about the buried diamond ring. Whispered conversations about easy money waiting 6 feet underground. But nobody acts on the rumors. Grave robbing is serious business, federal crime, years in prison. And what if the ring doesn't exist? By 1977, the legend has crystallized. Mike Todd's grave contains $100,000 in diamonds. Everyone knows this. Few question whether it's true. The perfect target is waiting. A famous grave, minimal security, maximum payoff. All it takes is desperate men with shovels. Friday, June 24th, 1977. Elizabeth Taylor arrives at O'Hare International Airport. She's between flights, a few hours to kill. At 45, Elizabeth is still beautiful, still famous, but aged by years of Burton marriages, divorces, drinking, and pain. She makes an impulsive decision. Rent a car, drive to Forest Park, visit Mike's grave for the first time in years. The cemetery is quiet on Friday afternoon. Few visitors, minimal staff. Elizabeth moves through the rows, unrecognized. Plot 66. Beth Aaron section. The modest headstone reading Avram Hirsch Goldbogen and Michael Todd. Elizabeth kneels beside the grave, places a dozen long-stemmed roses on the headstone, adds a small American flag, honors the man who would have been proud of his adopted country. She stays for 30 minutes, silent, grieving, processing 19 years of loss. What does she think about during those 30 minutes? Their brief, passionate marriage? The daughter who never knew her father? The life they should have lived together? Does she remember placing a diamond ring on his finger before burial? Does she worry about grave robbers? Does she regret the decision to bury him with valuables? No one will ever know. Elizabeth keeps her private moments private, always. She leaves the cemetery quietly, returns to O'Hare, continues her journey, never imagining what will happen 24 hours later. Her visit doesn't go completely unnoticed. A few cemetery workers see the famous visitor. Word spreads quickly in the small community. Elizabeth Taylor was here yesterday, they tell their families. First time in years, left flowers and a flag. The timing will seem suspicious later. The day before the grave robbery. The famous widow's final farewell. Coincidence? Or insider information that triggers a criminal plan? Saturday night, June 25th, 1977. Waldheim Cemetery after dark. No guards, no cameras, no witnesses. 3 men arrive with shovels, pry bars, and a plan. They've done their research. They know exactly where to dig. Plot 66. Beth Aaron section. 6 feet down to a fortune in diamonds. The digging takes hours, harder work than expected. But greed drives them forward. $100,000 split 3 ways. Easy retirement money. They reach the casket around 2 a.m. 19 years underground has damaged the metal. Easier to pry open than anticipated. Inside, the remains of Mike Todd. Skeletal, decayed, but intact enough to search. The thieves focus on the hands, looking for the legendary diamond ring, fingers that once wore Elizabeth Taylor's gift. They find nothing. No ring, no diamonds, no treasure, just bones, cloth, the remains of a man who died too young. Furious, they search the entire casket. Maybe the ring fell off. Maybe it's hidden in the clothing. Maybe the stories were wrong about the finger placement. Still nothing. No $100,000 windfall. No easy money. Just the stench of death and the reality of desecration. Panicking, they stuff Todd's remains into a garbage bag, dump the bag under a nearby tree, abandon the open casket, flee the cemetery. Behind them, the scattered evidence of the most shocking grave robbery in Hollywood history. Sunday morning, June 26, 1977. The elderly visitor who discovers the crime calls police immediately. Someone dug up a grave, she tells the 911 operator. The body's in a bag under a tree. The response is immediate. Police, FBI, cemetery officials, media descending like vultures. Mike Todd has been dead for 19 years. Now he's news again. The Mike Todd grave robbery becomes a national scandal. Front-page news across America. Hollywood icon desecrated by treasure hunters. The FBI takes over the investigation. Grave robbing involving interstate commerce. Federal jurisdiction. Serious prison time for the perpetrators. Detective Anthony Pellicano gets the case. a Chicago investigator who specializes in high-profile crimes. Smart, tenacious, experienced with Hollywood cases. Pelicano's first question: did the diamond ring ever exist? He interviews Elizabeth Taylor by phone. She's devastated by the desecration, horrified that Mike's rest was disturbed, but cagey about the ring details. "I don't discuss what I may or may not have left with my husband," Elizabeth tells Pelicano. "But there are rumors about a valuable ring. People say many things. That doesn't make them true." Pelicano interviews cemetery workers from 1958. The ones who claim to see Elizabeth place jewelry on Mike's body. Their stories don't match. Details change, memories corrupted by 19 years and repeated retellings. "She definitely put something on his finger," one insists. "Might have been a ring. Might have been something else," another admits. "I heard about it from my supervisor. Didn't see it myself," a third confesses. Pelicano interviews Mike Todd Jr., the son who wanted cremation. "My father wasn't buried with valuable jewelry," Mike Jr. states firmly. "Elizabeth wouldn't have done that. Too risky." But the rumors are just rumors. People love stories about buried treasure. So no $100,000 ring? Absolutely not. If there was, don't you think we'd have moved it to a safer location? The logic is compelling. If a $100,000 ring existed, why leave it in a cemetery grave for 19 years? Why not move it to a secure location? Why risk exactly what happened? As Pelicano digs deeper, the diamond ring story falls apart completely. First, the timeline doesn't work. Mike Todd died in a fiery plane crash. His body was burned beyond recognition, identified only through dental records. Eddie Fisher, Mike's best friend, attended the burial. His autobiography is explicit. "There was a closed coffin, but I knew it was more for show than anything else. The plane had exploded on impact, and whatever remains were found couldn't be identified." Translation: there wasn't enough of Mike Todd's body to place a ring on a finger. The remains were too damaged, too fragmented. Second, the only items recovered from the crash were Mike's wedding ring and platinum cufflinks. If there was jewelry to bury with him, it would have been these recovered pieces, not additional diamonds from Elizabeth's collection. Third, Elizabeth's psychological profile doesn't support the ring story. She was practical about death, not sentimental about burying valuables. Her fortune came from earning money, not wasting it on symbolic gestures. Fourth, the rumor's evolution proves its fictional nature. Starting as Elizabeth placed something on Mike's finger and growing to Elizabeth buried $100,000 in diamonds. Classic urban legend development. Pelicano's conclusion: the diamond ring never existed. The grave robbers risked federal prison for a Hollywood myth. But the myth was so compelling, so persistent, so detailed that desperate men believed it completely. They dug up a corpse, chasing a dream that was never real. Despite the absence of diamonds, Pelicano must find the grave robbers. Desecrating a corpse is still a federal crime. Mike Todd deserves justice. The investigation focuses on local criminals with connections to the cemetery area. Men desperate enough for money to risk grave robbing, stupid enough to believe urban legends. The break comes from bar talk. One of the robbers, drunk and boastful, tells friends about the easy job that went wrong. "We dug up Mike Todd looking for Elizabeth Taylor's diamonds," he brags. "Turned out to be bullshit." The friend, shocked by the confession, calls police. The informant leads to arrests. 3 men, small-time criminals, previous records for burglary and theft. Exactly the type to chase treasure-hunting schemes. During questioning, they reveal their planning process. "Everyone knew about the ring," robber number 1 tells Pelicano. "Common knowledge, $100,000 buried with Todd." "Where did you hear this?" Pelicano asks. "Everywhere. Bars, newspapers, people who worked at the cemetery." "Did you verify the story?" "Why would we? Everyone said the same thing. And when you found no ring, we figured we missed it, or it was somewhere else in the casket. Kept looking until we got scared." "Why did you put the body in a bag?" "Panicked. Didn't want to leave evidence. Thought maybe we could come back later." The men are pathetic. Not criminal masterminds. Just desperate fools who believed a story too good to be true. They're charged with federal grave robbing, convicted, sentenced to federal prison. Justice for Mike Todd, but no recovery of stolen diamonds. If you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything to us, because there never were any diamonds to steal. Mike Todd's remains are returned to his grave, reburied with dignity, a new casket, enhanced security. But the damage to Elizabeth is permanent. The desecration of her husband's corpse traumatizes her profoundly. "It's the cruelest thing anyone's ever done to me," she tells friends. They violated Mike's rest for money that didn't exist. The grave robbery changes how Elizabeth deals with death. When Richard Burton dies in 1984, she ensures his Swiss burial is secure. Maximum protection, no treasure hunting opportunities. She stops visiting Mike's grave entirely. Too painful now, too contaminated by the violation. "I can't see his headstone without imagining what those animals did to him," she confides to close friends. Elizabeth never speaks publicly about the diamond ring rumors, never confirms or denies placing jewelry in Mike's casket. Keeps the mystery alive despite the pain it causes. Why the silence? Perhaps she enjoys the romantic myth. Perhaps she wants to protect Mike's memory. Perhaps she doesn't want to give grave robbers definitive information about other burials. The legend persists. Even today, decades later, people still whisper about Elizabeth Taylor's buried diamonds, the $100,000 ring that may or may not have existed. Tour guides at Waldheim Cemetery still tell the story. Visitors still ask about the treasure. The myth has outlived both Mike Todd and Elizabeth Taylor. 30 years after the Mike Todd grave robbery, Detective Anthony Pelicano faces his own criminal trial. The same man who solved the Todd case is charged with running an illegal wiretapping operation, spying on Hollywood celebrities, extortion, racketeering. Pelicano, once the hero detective, becomes the criminal defendant. His downfall reveals the dark side of Hollywood security. The private investigators who know too many secrets, who cross too many lines, who become the criminals they once caught. But his work on the Todd case remained solid, professional, ethical. He proved the diamond ring was a myth, found the grave robbers, delivered justice, solved one of Hollywood's most shocking crimes. Now he awaits trial for his own crimes. The detective who exposed Hollywood lies caught in his own web of deception. "I solved a lot of cases," Pelicano tells reporters. The Mike Todd robbery was one of my best. Clean investigation, clear results. Any regrets? They ask. Just one. I wish I could have saved Elizabeth Taylor. The pain of learning her husband's grave was violated. Do you still think the diamond ring was fictional? Absolutely. If there was $100,000 in that grave, someone would have moved it long before 1977. Pelicano is convicted, sentenced to federal prison. The same fate as the grave robbers he once caught. Justice comes full circle. But Mike Todd remains buried, finally at peace. Today, the Mike Todd diamond ring story persists as Hollywood folklore. Tour guides still tell tourists about the treasure. True crime documentaries still explore the mystery. Internet forums still debate whether Elizabeth really buried $100,000 in diamonds. Why does the legend survive despite overwhelming evidence it's false? Because people want to believe in buried treasure, in grand romantic gestures, in love so powerful it defies practicality. Elizabeth Taylor, placing priceless diamonds on her dead husband's finger, is a beautiful story. More beautiful than the reality of charred remains and administrative decisions. The myth serves Elizabeth's legend too, proves her legendary love for Mike Todd, demonstrates her willingness to sacrifice anything for the man she cherished, even if it never happened. Mike Todd's grave at Waldheim Cemetery is now heavily secured. Cameras, alarms, regular patrols, no more treasure hunters disturbing the peace. But visitors still come, still ask about the diamonds, still wonder what Elizabeth really left with her husband. The truth died with Elizabeth in 2011. She took the secret to her own grave, left the mystery unsolved forever. Did she bury $100,000 in diamonds with Mike Todd? Or is it just Hollywood's most persistent myth? The answer lies 6 feet underground in Forest Park, Illinois, where Mike Todd rests in peace, finally undisturbed, finally safe from treasure hunters chasing dreams that never existed. The Mike Todd grave robbery teaches profound lessons about greed, myth, and the price of fame. Lesson 1. Urban legends become truth through repetition. The diamond ring story grew more detailed and valuable with each retelling. Eventually, desperate men believed it completely. Lesson 2. Celebrity death attracts exploitation. Mike Todd's fame made his grave a target. His connection to Elizabeth Taylor added treasure hunting appeal. Lesson 3. Love creates myths bigger than reality. Elizabeth's devotion to Mike inspired romantic stories about buried diamonds. Truth became less important than legend. Lesson 4. Greed drives men to ultimate violations. The promise of $100,000 motivated grave robbers to desecrate a corpse. Money overcame basic human decency. Lesson 5. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Whether Elizabeth buried diamonds with Mike doesn't matter. The story serves its purpose either way. The grave robbery of 1977 represents Hollywood's dark underbelly, where fame creates targets, where love becomes legend, where myth drives crime. Mike Todd never asked to be famous, never wanted treasure hunters disturbing his rest, never imagined his grave would become a crime scene. He simply loved Elizabeth Taylor, won an Oscar, died young, wanted to rest in peace. Instead, he became the center of Hollywood's most shocking violation. The dead producer whose corpse was stolen by men chasing dreams, dreams that probably never existed, Diamonds that likely were never buried. Treasure that lived only in imagination. But imagination proved powerful enough to drive men to federal crimes. To traumatize a grieving widow. To violate the ultimate boundary between life and death. June 26, 1977. Mike Todd's remains are discovered in a garbage bag under a tree. 19 years after death, he faces new indignity. The thieves who violated his grave find nothing. No diamonds, no treasure, no easy money. Just the bones of a man who died loving Elizabeth Taylor, who left behind a daughter and a legend, who won an Oscar and lost his life. The $100,000 diamond ring that drove men to grave robbery probably never existed. A Hollywood myth that became criminal motivation. Elizabeth Taylor's grief created a romantic story. Desperate men turned the story into criminal opportunity. Greed transformed love into violation. Today, Mike Todd rests securely in Waldheim Cemetery, protected by modern security, safe from treasure hunters, finally at peace. The diamond ring mystery remains unsolved. Perhaps that's appropriate. Some secrets should stay buried. Some myths should outlive truth. Mike Todd died too young. Elizabeth Taylor died too old. Both carried the secret of what was really buried in that grave. The thieves who dug him up found only bones and disappointment. The treasure they sought existed only in imagination. Sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones that never existed at all. The $100,000 diamond ring. The perfect love story. The Hollywood ending that never came. Mike Todd's grave. Where dreams died underground. Where love became legend. Where thieves learned that some treasures are too expensive to steal, even when they don't exist. Behind Hollywood's golden facade, the biggest stars hid the darkest secrets. Every glamorous smile concealed scandals that would shock the world. If you want to uncover more hidden truths about classic Hollywood's biggest legends, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. The real stories are always more shocking than the movies.